Hey everyone, this is Jaxie, and today we are going to get excited about history with Decisive Campaigns, Warsaw to Paris, Case Yellow. Now that Poland is in German hands, we are turning west, and we're going to begin an even bigger scenario. So a couple things to note about this one. The scale is actually different. So instead of 2 days per turn, it's 1, and that means each hex also is only 10 miles instead of 20. One note with that is it does change the stacking limit. So for an attack, standard one-side or two-side attack, the limit is 70, which means 2 regiments will overstack. So attacks have to be pretty deliberate, or you can suffer extra casualties. Other notes here, with this scenario, you do get some options for cards to play, even if you're just doing the standalone. And for me, I'm going to do Eben Amal just because it is really useful for getting into Belgium faster. But I'm going to hold off on the terror bombing and dropping in the paratroopers because historically, both of those things were used against the Dutch, but I don't think we'll need it. I think the Dutch will capitulate pretty quickly. And as far as the 7th Flieger Division, I'm going to hold off and possibly use that against British troops or the French when I get time. So other mechanic changes, if you are the Allied player, and right now I'm playing with everything historically, to replicate the deal plan, they actually have a point system where Belgium and the Netherlands expect a certain amount of British and French troops to go into the deal zone and occupy the deal line. And what that means is it kind of forces you to be out of position. And if you don't put enough troops in the deal line, then Belgium and Netherlands will start to reconsider if Britain and France are really motivated enough, and they will start pulling back, and they will lose command and control and morale. Now, last game, Poland starts with really high morale and full command and control, and so do the Germans. In this scenario, to represent that the Allies had problems coordinating with each other, coordinating their own troops, they start with lower morale, and they start with lower command and control. And the way command and control works, it will assign penalties to action points and movement and all of the things that a counter can perform based on dice rolls and things like that. So if you are one of the Allied players, you will have units just restricted in movement to represent that you're having trouble with communications and your men just are not feeling it. So those are important things to note. For the Allies, they can break the deal plan eventually, and the longer the game goes, the more likely it is. For this northern group, I'm just pushing west, and what I'm going to do is I learned my lesson. I'm going to try and locate most of the air forces of the Allies. You start with some revealed to kind of represent Germany's overwhelming attack and air superiority in this campaign. So I'm looking around. Unfortunately, I don't think you get to see the British Air Force, but I'm going to attack the other 3 allies and try to destroy their planes on the ground so that they cannot interdict anything that I'm doing. And right here you can see the stacking limit. 2 units with fighter cover goes well over, but I want to have that fighter cover just in case they're able to scramble. We take a couple casualties, but we devastate the French fighter and recon units. That's a real good start. I'm really happy to see that. And now we're going to do the same thing for the Belgians. And Britain, they have some modern fighters. It's going to be a problem when they show up, but hopefully doing this to the rest of the Allies, we will be able to have air superiority, which on clear weather turns is just going to rack up so many casualties in open fields. And once we get out of the Ardennes, it's going to be easy pickings. And here 0 casualties and just devastate the Belgian Air Force. Now the Dutch, they have some flak units protecting. I'm going to try to attack anyway. I just don't want any surprises with them getting birds off the ground. Unfortunately, one of the costlier attacks, but they have such a small air force, any damage I can do to it should be useful. And we see not a lot of things. We've lost some bombers and some fighters, like 35 planes total, but they've lost 200. So I'll take 35 against 200. That's going to give us good air superiority. And in these early turns, I'm just working my way west, and I am going to focus on trying to get as many bridge crossings as possible. The Dutch and the Belgians, they have their plan around blocking bridges, and then the Belgians are going to kind of turtle up on the Albert Canal. So if I can get crossings early, I can get there faster and start making a plan. Even though this isn't the main thrust of the attack, I'm going to be pressing. And of course we're going to try to go for a nice Dunkirk pocket, but you do have to capitulate the Dutch and the Belgians. It helps if units are cut off. If too many units are cut off, they'll start leeching morale as a whole country. But casualties can do that too. So shattering units, forcing units to retreat, anything I can do to lower morale, that will be beneficial and speed up the campaign. Now, one thing to note, we didn't have a ton of supply issues in Case White, but here, when Sedan breaks and you do get that push to the coast, supplies will become an issue, and those panzers racing to cut off Dunkirk, they're going to feel it. And right here, I want to get these units out of the way. I want to try to get this nice rail line and some crossings. So I'm going to do some attacks. It's not like the Polish forces. These allies, especially the Dutch and the Belgians, will melt much more easily. And so I already have panzers up. I don't think I'm going to attack their artillery in a town, but I do want to knock the Peel regiment out of the way. And I want to hit from multiple sides, because you guys saw just 2 infantry regiments attacking from one side over stacks by 30. And I just don't want to do that. I'm saving some of the Luftwaffe to see if I can get anything better in the future. But for now, let's just try to shove them out of the way. Perfect stack from 3 sides. We do lose some panzers, but 1,500 men, I will take that in a heartbeat. Rail lines open, that unit is wounded, and you can see the Germans are so much stronger and the stacking is in our favor. So advanced units are actually capturing land across the river, and we're getting some good zone of control, and right there shatters that unit. That artillery is totally surrounded. We have a bridgehead, which is good. These rear units, it's good to move them as a group until they deploy. There's no reason to click 4 counters. Just have them move up. But here, I want to try to capture this crossing if I can. So I'm going to bombard it with a lot of artillery. And in the open, you can see these poor Dutch units just melt. Now, I don't like attacking over the river. I could bypass, but again, I want to get these rail lines and these bridges as quickly as possible. And with such devastating artillery, I don't think this unit's going to put up a lot of... And they don't. Yeah, they don't put up a lot of resistance. They completely shatter. They surrender, scatter to the winds, and it only cost 100 units on my side, even though we were overstacked. So far, this invasion is going swimmingly. We should be vacationing in Paris in no time. And right now it's May 10th. I think you have till June 8th under standard conditions. But we are just moving down. I like to go north to south, at least in these initial turns. It's a little easier to move Army Group A, since they are kind of the sideshow. And then we can get to Army Group B, which eventually we're going to have to make some decisions. I want to go for the historical attack at Sedan, but depending on where the French troops are, their disposition, where the British end up going in the deal plan, that could change. And one of the most interesting decisions you make playing this game for the case yellow is where to get that breakout and where to begin the rush to the coast. Rushing to the coast is the most effective. You can just push in a line for Paris, but I found a Paris victory is really difficult, and I'm going to go for it, but I definitely want to get the historical Dunkirk pocket. The game represents that by, just like with Poland, having evacuation points, so it will count against my score at the end whether or not Britain is able to get troops out. We'll see if we can do better than history and go well under the 100,000 men that made it out. And right here, just all these rivers. Every time I get over a river, every time I get a bridge, I'm happy. I know we haven't reached the Albert Canal yet, but the more we get for mobility options, the sooner we can start lining up on the canal and making our attacks. Belgium does have a lot of entrenchments on the Albert Canal, but due to the command and control and the morale issues, if you get artillery support and air support, their units do often melt, and it's easy to make breakthroughs. It's just a question of time. Because the British and the French, they are going to eventually play their card, even for the AI that lets them break the deal plan. And then they're going to have a lot more operational freedom for where their units go. And here you can see Aben Amal. For 5 points, it's just a free card. It takes the fort. Now, make sure you don't move them. If you move them away, Belgium can easily reoccupy the forts and make that crossing take an extra turn or two. I have seen that happen in play-by-email games. So just a note, leave them there. That's really what they're good for. Trying to get lucky with some artillery. It is a clear turn, but I'm saving the Luftwaffe. I usually do those strikes at the end in my first couple turns when I haven't found the main body of the Allied army. Once I find the main body, then I will use them for breakthroughs, do pretty standard blitz order. But for now, I'm just scouting, I'm just taking what I can take. This first turn is really a calm before the storm. You're moving up, you're meeting just the screening units for the Allies, and it's fine that we let them see Army Group A. Kind of trying to represent that they think the Germans are going to come right through the way they did in World War I. But this is no Schlieffen plan. We are not going north. We're actually going to push through the Ardennes. Germany had a brilliant idea to put massed tank units under von Kleist and send them through the Ardennes forest. You would think that in a dense forest, tanks and trucks would clog the roads and be really tough going. And that's what the Allies thought too. And so the whole point of the deal plan was they thought the Germans were going to meet them in the open field. That's where they came in 1914, and it's what would make the most sense for tanks. The other problem too historically was Belgian neutrality. The deal plan was that Belgium would not have French or British troops on its borders until there was an actual war. So they asked Belgium to create this line and to dig fortifications, and then in the event of a German invasion, they would rush to occupy it. But that means that the Allies have to move into position. They're not already there. And the game represents this because of entrenchment. The longer a unit sits on a spot, the better it will entrench. And so the Allies aren't going to have any entrenchment other than the very thin line of Belgian units. The French and the British are going to have to rush into place and try to dig in while I'm racing to beat them. And so historically it was a nightmare. And then when the Allies got there, not only were they facing Army Group A, which was not the main thrust, but the fortifications weren't dug in. And that's when you get this attack at Sedan. Now, one thing I did, I used my fighters to cover my bombers when attacking the Allied air forces, and so I don't have a lot of good recon options. I probably should have saved one and just had my air attack be a little less effective, because I really want to see where the French are going to be and where I can pick my spot across the Seine River. And right here, I'm just moving through the Ardennes. It does take a little while. It takes a turn or two to get through the forest and to have your spot where you can get a good breakthrough. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to slowly move this giant mass of units. And now this is one of my favorite parts. Poor Luxembourg. That's it. They already fell. Already took it. First nation goes down. Conquering Wehrmacht. We'll have a parade for them. No, they start completely unoccupied. You just kind of take it in the first turn, and it is what it is. These infantry units, they actually can force crossings, and they can be really useful because if they engage forces on the Seine, then the French can't move them to attack wherever the Panzer breakthrough is. And so 16th Army, they're going to hold as many of those units in place. And also historically, because I have all those settings, we're going to be facing the French 7th Army. And so there's going to be a lot of colonial units right around. Oh, it's not the Seine, it's the Meuse. I'm so smart. But, yeah, a lot of colonial units, and they're going to fight like you think they fight. They're only so enthusiastic to fight for a nation that is forcing them and imperializing them. And they do have some forts, but really a concerted panzer attack is just going to melt them. The French had the best units in the worst place and some of the worst units in the best place. And so that's one of the, I don't want to say a myth, but one of the misunderstandings. A lot of people who aren't historians, they blame it all on the Maginot Line. It's not like the French don't have forces. I mean, even in this game, it's represented that the Allies and the Germans have a parity in infantry numbers and tank numbers and things. It's just they were dealing with the deal plan. The French command and control structure was a nightmare, a lot of antagonism between the different generals and the different branches. You know, they had men on leave right up until the eve of the invasion. They had been sitting there so long with the phony war, or the Sitzkrieg, that even though the Allies declare war on Germany with Case White and Poland, they didn't actually do anything other than exchange some light artillery. So these men have been sitting there on this frontier, not actually thinking that anything's going to happen. The French government was a nightmare. They had multiple votes of no confidence. And as we're going to see when we start meeting French forces, most of their mobile units and their tanks are not in the right spot. They do have some tank regiments and tank divisions, but a lot of their tanks are scattered through their infantry, and they're certainly not in their own corps and their own armies like the Germans are. So even when we meet French tanks, we're going to have more massed armor than they do. We're going to have higher morale. We're going to have better command and control. Our units are going to not be demoralized and just getting back from vacation, finding out, oh, the war's on. Yeah, there were so many reasons the French surrendered. I know they have that reputation, but this was just so unfortunate for the Allies and so well played by the Germans to attack through the worst piece of terrain that nobody thought you could have an effective attack through. And just massing panzer divisions and corps and armies was so effective. And the Allies, they're going to just scramble. And even playing against human players, not only is there the command and control mechanics and the deal mechanics, but it really does represent by having 4 different factions. If you play by email and have 4 different players, for the Allies, it really is a nightmare to try to get 4 different people to coordinate. And it's a lot of fun. I played a game recently where I was Belgium and I was just not on the same page with the French and the British players. And I didn't pull my troops back fast enough. And they wanted me to push up further, far forward than I was comfortable. And yeah, it was just really interesting seeing how they try to communicate. And then the British and the French player weren't always attacking in the same spot. So it's a lot of fun. This scenario, I'm real excited for this one. And to see how well we do. And here, I'm making some blind attacks, assuming where they are over the Meuse. And yep, I'm hitting empty space. But I should have just done recon and burned one of these units, and then the second one could have attacked. I'm being stubborn. It's not a good idea, but what I do learn is the French are not over some of these crossings, so I'm going to have some free crossings unless they change their tactics and their ideas. So they could fan their units out. I'm sure they have some regiments and things. And here, yep, I just have to burn an air unit for recon. And you can see that they're holding their divisions together. And there is one mobile unit. I'm going to attack it. It's in a city. I might get lucky, might not. Couple tanks, couple trucks. I'll take it. But yeah, there's the fortress divisions, and they are totally massed together. That's fine. If they want to just give me the river crossings and let me whittle them down with artillery, I will certainly take that. And now it's just cleaning up airstrikes. A lot of my air units are too far north to attack the French. But yeah, right there, I don't know how they shot them down. Machine guns and artillery, that's pretty amazing. But the French, I want to hit them where I can. However, if they're out of range, I'm just going to plink at units, cause some casualties, see if I can get their morale to start dropping so they will give up earlier. It's one of the reasons that Germans did historically terror bomb the Dutch. I could do that, but again, and here I just misclick. I have no idea what I'm thinking. Waste of a unit. Oh well. It happens. It shows that I'm not doctoring these turns, that it is what it is. So that's the first turn after my lovely air victories. I'm really excited for this playthrough, and I hope you guys are too. As always, it really helps if you guys comment. Let me know what you want to see, what your thoughts are about the campaign. Liking and subscribing, I always appreciate that because I have a lot of plans to keep doing playthroughs, and then I have some other playthroughs coming up too. But stay excited about history, and I will see you guys in the next video.